Hello, everyone, and welcome to Father Stephen and Mother Cameron and Adult Form. So we're doing Wired Word as we've been doing for the last few weeks, which is a set of reflections on articles that are out there talking about the news of the week. And this one's rather interesting this week because we're going to talk about John Bon Jovi, the rock star.
Rock and roll, dude.
Rock and roll.
No, yeah, rock on.
Rock on. You're so hip, Mother Cameron.
Initially, I had hang loose.
Okay.
Rock on. And this is I love you, so I still didn't have it right. You got to tuck your thumb in.
Rock on. Rock on. Okay, rock on. With John Bon Jovi.
So I have a confession to make. So Bon Jovi, like clearly 80s dude, big hair band, rock, metal band kind of thing.
Yeah.
Did not find him attractive. My girlfriends were fawning all over him.
And you didn't like John Bon Jovi?
No, but he has aged well.
Okay. That being said.
While I'm in this hole already, I will say that I was sharing with a girlfriend the other night that I've been binge watching Blue Bloods and what's his name? I know I've lost his Tom Selleck.
Tom Selleck.
He's had a mustache as long as I've known him. So I mean he's one who's aged well. But I was like, but could you imagine Tom Selleck without the stash? Like he's had it since Magnum PI days when I was
Yep. He's always had it. It's a trademark for Tom Selleck.
Holier things.
Yeah, so let's talk about holier things, but we're still going to talk about John Bon Jovi. But we'll get to holier things with this. Okay, here we go. Had this been a normal summer, rock superstar John Bon Jovi, 58, he's almost as old as me, would be on tour with his rock band, Bon Jovi. But the global pandemic put the kibosh on that. So instead, Bon Jovi, the man, not the band, filled in as a dishwasher at the JBJ Soul Kitchen, a nonprofit community restaurant in New Jersey operated by the John Bon Jovi Soul Foundation. And one outcome of that is a new song he wrote with help from his fans to tell their stories of life during the shutdown. The song is called "If You Can't Do What You Do, Do What You Can." The JBJ Soul Kitchen, now in operation in 3 New Jersey locations, is an effort to address food insecurity and hunger among people in need. The menu, which features fresh farm-to-table meals, has no posted prices. Patrons who can afford to do so make a donation to cover their own meal and the meal of someone else. Individuals or families who cannot afford to donate are fed anyway, and those who are able can pay it forward by volunteering for tasks in the kitchen, such as washing dishes. The JBJ Soul Kitchen website expresses the philosophy this way: community dining with dignity. All are welcome at our table, where locally sourced ingredients, dignity, and respect are always on the menu. The required increased social distancing ordered during the pandemic upended the Soul Kitchen's normal practices, especially when meals could only be served by takeout and the public could not be allowed in the kitchen. So Bon Jovi filled in as at one of the restaurant's locations as a dishwasher. At one point, Bon Jovi's wife, Dorothea, took a picture of him washing dishes and posted it on social media with the caption, "If you can't do what you do what you can." Bon Jovi says he thought no more about it, but eventually it came to him that the caption could be a song title. And it also occurred to him that the song was an opportunity for others to express their thoughts about dealing with the pandemic. So Bon Jovi wrote the first verse. "Tonight they're shutting down the borders and they've boarded up the schools. Small towns are rolling up their sidewalks, one last paycheck coming through. I know you're feeling kind of nervous. We're all a little bit confused. Nothing's the same. This ain't a game. We've got to make it through." And he wrote this chorus: "When you can't do what you do what you can. This ain't my prayer, it's just a thought. I'm wanting to send. Round here, we bend, but we don't break. Down here, we all understand. When you can't do what you do what you can. Then using social media, he invited his fans to contribute verses or stories he made into verses, and stories poured in. Some 6,000 submissions in the first 2 days.
Wow.
Here are 3 of them from Adriana. As we look through the windows and wonder what to do, this job is not going to be available for a year or 2. It's time to get creative. It's time to fight again. It's time to give some love to all our families and our friends. From Jeffrey. Well, this life's become a movie that no one wants to see. Everyone's working hard to keep their heads above the sea. Life is a nightmare. Life is a dream. I'll hold on for you if you hold on for me. From Bryce, a truck driver. Tonight I lay my head down and try to get some sleep. I pray to stay essential. That's my family's hearth and that my family's health will keep. I walk into that warehouse and bring on the load, for our country must keep rolling on our highways and our roads. Now that New Jersey, which was one of the states hardest hit in the first wave of the coronavirus, is beginning to reopen and allows outdoor seating at restaurants, JBJ Soul Kitchen has transitioned back to the pay it forward model. The Soul Kitchen website advises, please note that our in-need customers will always be seated first, as they have no other options for dining. Our desire is to make sure that anyone who needs a meal knows that they can come and see us, Bon Jovi said, and we'll provide them with that nutritional meal. Well, there we go.
Yeah. He's done great work through his foundation. So he's been working for like housing and food security and issues of poverty for quite some time now. And so even when he is on the road, Bon Jovi has been a great contributor and advocate for helping those who have little to nothing. Yeah.
But what's so cool is he has the wherewithal that he can share it with the world around him.
Yeah.
And not only that, the fact that he can't go on his concert tours. So what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with the time you have allotted to you because you can't do something else or can't do what you normally do? And so
one of the statements, it says, it's akin to when life hands you lemons, make lemonade.
Yep. And I mean, that sets it, in a sense, as we've been trying to do around here all the time. I mean, we don't have church.
Yeah.
So what do? We do this virtual stuff. We do these videos. Doing what we can, because we can't do what we normally do.
Do you agree with the statement to do what you can?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it's an opportunity that's been dropped in our laps. If you can't do what you normally do, do what you can. And it's not easy because you keep having to make, shifts and changes to what you're normally doing. And like what we've done here, we've had to learn how to use Zoom, learn how to use YouTube and Facebook better so that we can put things out there.
How do you think, we help, or even for ourselves, how do we determine what it is that we can do? Like, I think it gets overwhelming, right? Like, there's nothing I can do about that. Yeah. I mean, that would have been really simple, right? For us to say, well, we always have Vacation Bible School in person. There's nothing I can do to, still bring 200 people together plus into the building. Mm-hmm. So, our version of do what you can meant, well, we can send it out. We can still plan it. Mm-hmm. And provide the resources for people to do it themselves. But, I think it's hard to figure out, what is it that I can do? And is that adequate? Is it enough? Is it...
Will it make a difference? Will it be okay?
Will it make a difference? Yeah. Like, I can do that, but why? Like, to what end?
To what end, right? To what end? Well, hopefully the end is that, well, for Bon Jovi, I mean, he's donated a lot of his time and his money to charity, obviously, and to enterprises that support people in need, especially these JBJ soul kitchens. But so what he was doing was actually what he's always done. He just did it more efficiently and threw himself into the middle of it. I mean, I'm sure he's not normally at the kitchens washing dishes.
Yeah.
Here he did. He went right into that and threw himself into it.
Are there any Bible verses that you think help support us in doing what you can, or that help support us during this time?
Well, the one they suggest is that one from Mark about the widow's mite. You know, as Jesus is at the treasury, he's watching all these people give from their abundance, and the widow comes in and gives 2 copper coins, which are worth a penny.
Yeah.
Everybody else gave out of their abundance. She gave out of her poverty. She gave what she could.
Yeah.
So
I got a message this week. I had been working on our fall the next program year's planning. And so because it was time, we set the date for next year's VBS. We went ahead and set the date for next year's mission trip in June. And so I had reached out to Tim at Appalachian South Folk Life Center to say, can we go ahead and reserve this week in June? And he had said yes, that he would go ahead and, was grateful for that. But then he sent me he said, I apologize for being long-winded, but I appreciated the feedback on like what was happening with them. And so what I wanted to let you know was like what you said was like the widow's mite. He mentioned to me about, I'm just going to share part of his email because it's what it reminded me of, was that the summer, he says, has taught us about generous people up towards the Folk Life Center. As we got through the summer on donations alone, we have been able to work on some improvements to a couple of buildings, notably the chapel and Crystal's house. And so they still have some worries about the down season, fall and winter, right, and how they'll get through that. But he shared this. I was recently shaken when a young unemployed blind woman brought me a donation of $25. I was reluctant to take it. But then I realized a sermon I heard during my high school years about giving being a grace. It was not something I understood at age 18, but I do now. It lingered in my mind for a purpose. I humbly accepted that wonderful gift and will keep my eye on her in case she ever needs anything from this community. To be able to do that made her feel very good. So, just kind of that. So talk about a
widow's mite story.
Right? Yeah, that's exactly what you said. The one I was like, well, I actually have a real life one. And one of the questions that that Wired Word asks of us is, when have we experienced or been helped by someone who couldn't address the full scope of our needs, but who nonetheless did what he or she could, kind of like this young homeless blind woman did. She couldn't address the whole scope of their needs to be able to, make it through, but she gave a very generous gift.
She gave what she could.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. That's what we should ask our people. When have you experienced somebody who gave out of their poverty, who gave because they wanted to give, regardless? And you knew they probably couldn't afford it, but that wasn't the point. Matter of fact, I know a story. We all know about Habitat for Humanity. It's been around for a long time. It started in Americus, Georgia back in the late 60s. The second, what's the word I'm looking for, franchise of it, or second outgrowth of it, the next Habitat for Humanity group was in Morgan and Scott counties, Tennessee. And years ago, when I was working in the Appalachian Mountains, I wrote an article about the second Habitat for Humanity. Nobody remembers number 2, right? And Morgan and Scott counties in Tennessee. And one of the stories they told me was about how when Habitat opened its first program in Africa, the first person who ever received a house through Habitat for Humanity in Morgan and Scott counties, Tennessee, gave a generous gift to the African Habitat Plan. And she didn't have the money, but she did it anyway, because she had benefited from it and she wanted others to as well. So yeah, there are people out there who do this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, if the statistics are to be believed about giving, the people with the least give the most percentage of their income.
Yeah. So they ask us to reflect on this statement by the Wired Word team member, Heidi Mann, regarding finding the good in the pandemic. Our kiddo, 15 years old, had to do school online. As parents, we saw it and encouraged him to see it as an opportunity to grow in self-discipline, resourcefulness, and appreciation of his teachers and the challenges they were facing. Well, as soon as the chance to learn some new digital programs and tools. These will be to his advantage in college and or the workforce as a resident of the 21st century world. It's not the same thing as working 90 hours per week to search for a cure for COVID, but it's one way a family has to step up to the plate during this time. The same 15-year-old boy also decided to make banana bread, which he has done multiple times, to give away to people he appreciates and wanted to reach out during the pandemic. Again, not exactly 90 hours a week as a researcher, but we do what we can to reach beyond ourselves. That's part of being a follower of Jesus.
There you go.
I think part of that is, just trying to think of like, what skills do you have that you can use right now? I know there was this great thing that had talked about like Home Depot and Lowe's have seen like a big boom, like as the rest of the
that's right.
Economy and businesses were seeing a drop. Home Depot and Lowe's were going up because people were stuck in their homes. And realizing all these projects, I rearranged my living room, right? So, the people have, well, now I have the time to finally put down that new flooring I wanted to do or whatever. And so if those are skills that you have, like I can't go to my regular office, but I know how to, do a lawn, or I know how to fix a toilet. I can help my neighbor, right? With a mask, but
the mask, right.
All right. So one of the other comments they made was comment on this from member Frank Ramirez. If you will remember Frank Ramirez's name, he's the one who brought us the Jesus faith statement a couple of weeks ago that we all liked so much. So regarding doing what you can, this morning I paid a pastoral visit to a friend who was finally home. He went into the hospital with COVID-19 on April 13th and came home last Friday, July 10th. We discussed what truck drivers are doing, especially during the early stages of the pandemic, where their support systems weren't operating, showers, bathrooms, food services, and the like. And of course, the vital work of all those in the healthcare industry. We talked about those who took it upon themselves to use their enforced free time to make masks for others. I can think of factories that retooled to make ventilators and other vital equipment. A farmer I know had lots of these top-notch masks that were in short supply. He works with chemicals and other things, and he made them available to those who wanted one. So again, just some more ideas about how we're repurposing.
Well, even the things we do here at St. Patrick's, I mean, we, have often, we constantly give to the food pantry. Mm-hmm. And, it wasn't safe to be all dumping it here at church and then somebody else taking it over. It meant that people needed to drop things off themselves at the food, and I did. Mm-hmm. And, we feed the homeless once a month. And how were we going to do that? Well, we came up with the idea of putting together an assembly line where we put everything into a single bag so we can take it down to the homeless shelter, and the shelter can hand out a single bag to each person. Mm-hmm. So that they're socially distant and we're still feeding people. So the whole point is, I guess, trying to be creative in the midst of a time when normal things don't work the way they normally should.
I think it has been an exceptionally creative time. and a steep learning curve. Like you've talked about, like how quickly things online, like the country jumped ahead like 5 years in their use of and knowledge of technology, right?
Yeah.
And the systems that were in place that were like, hey, you could be doing this online, and suddenly everybody was like, okay.
Which in some ways throws it all up.
There were a few of us that knew about them and would use them, but there wasn't this huge, massive, entire world need for it till recently. So one of the last things I want to ask one of their questions, and then I've got another question that I want us to consider. So what scripture verses reflect your own experience during this pandemic?
Oh my. Unfortunately, there are too many.
Scripture verses?
Well, it is scriptural stories. I mean, I think of the wilderness wanderings.
Yeah, we've heard a lot about the wilderness wanderings, indeed.
And the Babylonian exile. But in some ways, this whole business of doing what you can, where you can, with what you got, which is, by the way, the theme of our last year's pledge drive. This whole business of doing that during a pandemic, when the Babylonian exile took place, Jerusalem was destroyed and all the leadership was taken off to Babylon, that's when the synagogue was created. The synagogue didn't exist prior to the Babylonian captivity. And they had to find some way of living out their faith. The temple had been destroyed. That had been the center of Judaism prior to the defeat by Babylon. But when they were away from the temple in Babylon, they came up with this idea of the idea of the scriptures, the idea of the writings being read and interpreted and made sense of, the idea that we say certain prayers at different times of the day, and especially on the Sabbath, to remember whose we are, that we are God's. It was a creative response to a horrible situation.
Right.
So that's the key, I think, trying to let God move us to make creative responses that still carry out who and what we want to be in the face of God, in the midst of things that are horrible and not good. So that's what resonates with me. How about you?
Do not be afraid.
Do not be afraid. Yeah.
Right? This too shall pass. I think definitely do not be afraid. Mary pondered at these things, right? Like doing a lot of pondering at these things. And I guess I'm resonating with Mary because I'm pondering and I'm holding all these things in my heart. Like, it's just, yeah. So the other thing, a friend of mine had shared a quote that said, prayer expresses our relationship with God, and it should not surprise us that this relationship parallels in significant ways our relationships with other persons. Like any form of intimacy, it requires time spent in each other's presence, time spent simply to enjoy the gift of companionship. And that quote's by Marjorie Thompson from Soul Feast, which is a book. And so I know that there were two things about this that, jumped out at me was, prayer expressing our relationship with God, and it being like any form of intimacy and our time spent in each other's presence. And a couple of people have joked around about this meme that had been floating around about, since if there's a resurgence or the continuation of the pandemic, can I swap partners? Can I swap teams? Right? Like, just for a month or two, do we get to swap for the next portion? But we've been forced into or out of relationship and intimacy with other people. So that, we talked weeks and weeks ago about touch deprivation, right? Like not being able to, touch people or, hold hands with people or And so, and that may be true. It's especially poignant for those who don't have anyone else in their home, right? Like I had read a post the other day of a woman who said it's been 4 months and X number of days since I last, number of contacts with other people, 2. Right. Number of touches from another person, 0. Right. So it was
4 months. Yeah.
In 4 months. Right. Yeah. So one of the things that we can do, right? So you're like, what can you do when you can't do what you can? And so there have been times I know that some of us have said, I promise I'm coming back to prayer. That it's all one big circle. I can't do anything for you, but I can pray for you. Right? I can't give you the money that you're asking for, or I can't donate my time to that, but I will pray for your endeavors, or I will pray that someone will come along that can do something for you that I cannot do.
Sure.
And so I'm wondering a lot about what most of us think about prayer, especially during time of pandemic. What do our prayers look like? And is there anything that we would change or have changed about our prayer life during this time? Like in doing what you can, has your prayer life changed right now?
People have told me their prayer life has changed. More people are following the daily office than I ever thought would. We did some of that with praying with friends when this all started, trying to encourage people to think about the daily office. And a number of people are still doing it. Mm-hmm. They changed it. And I think that's part of it. I think one of the things that sustains us through tough times is the rhythm of our connection with God. I mean, for the Israelites in the wilderness, it was the rhythm of gathering the manna every day and knowing that it was a gift from God and a response to God. For those in Babylonian captivity, it was the rhythm of the prayers and the synagogue that was created that helped them last through the troubles. So we, in a sense, create a rhythm in our lives that makes some sense about how we connect with God every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anything else we want to say about this?
No, I think that my only closing comment would be that, they'll be getting the newsletter soon, and that even as we continue to plan for the new program year, the new school academic year, we're doing what we can. When you can't do what you do, you do what you can.
Do what you can.
And so we are doing what we can, or going to try and do what we can, and that most things have backup plans to this is our hope, but we are a people of hope.
We are.
And so we hope that we will be able to do these things, but they all come with we may not be able to do these things, or the way we do these things will look differently. So just a reminder, we're doing what we can, and if you have feedback on doing what you can, let us know. So
okay.
All right, you want me to pray us out?
You want to hear a song?
Oh yes.
I mean, come on, since we're doing Bon Jovi, maybe I can add a song.
Yes, please.
I'm just going to play the first verse and the chorus of a song by Sai Khan. Can you hear it all right? Because he's a folk singer from the Appalachian Mountains who I've known for 40 years. He's still around, and he wrote this song about what you do with what you got.
Yeah.
You must know someone like him. He was tall and strong and lean, had a body like a greyhound, and a mind so sharp and keen. But his heart just like a laurel grew, twisted on itself till everything he's said and done brought pain to someone else. 'Cause it's not just what you're born with, it's what you choose to bear. It's not just how big your share is, but how much you can share. It's not the fights you dream of, but the ones you really fought. It's not just what you're given, but what you do with what you've got. So there you go.
Awesome.
In honor of Bon Jovi. Another
Lord be
musician.
with you.
And also with you.
Help us, Lord, neither to discount the little we can sometimes do, nor the much we can do at other times. Make us willing to put both our little and our much at your disposal. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.